grasses, stuff like that. Good for some areas are good for livestock because it gives a leaner meat, or even like sheep. It'll give a finer wool. I sort of grew up in the bush, so it's sort of stuff I know.
So were you raised on a farm then?
I was born here in the city of Adelaide. All my family come from a little mining town called Broken Hill, which is far western New South Wales, and we spent a lot of time out on sheep stations or sheep ranches, whatever you call them over there. We just a lot of camping, so just learned a lot of camping, bush skills, stuff like that. After I left school, I actually worked in an agricultural centre for a while. They said I was the best sheepdog they ever had.
Why is that?
When you're herding or mustering sheep, you're supposed to muster them face into the wind. They don't like running with the wind to their tail. I didn't know this, and we had a flock of about 30 or 40 merino sheep, and and we used to have this big paddock where we'd let them out during the day where they would feed, and then at night time we'd put them back into their stall where it was safe away from like people and dogs and other animals that might attack them. Sheep are pretty vulnerable that way. So depending on which way the wind was running, we're supposed to either push them up and bring them so that they're facing the wind to get them through the gate. Of course, no one had ever told me this, so I would get behind the sheep and I'd push them up to the gate, and very often the wind would be blowing from my back, and I'd be pushing and the sheep would be running with the wind to their back, and you would have to position them or push them in a position where they would go through this little gate that was about 3 feet wide. Anyway, so I would just continually do this and just be patient and walk back and forth behind them until they would go through the gate. Then they would go into their little stall area where they had water and stuff like that. So and no one ever told me that you weren't supposed to do that. And I continued to do that after I was told that you weren't supposed to do that because sheep don't like running with their tails to the wind. So to me, it didn't really matter, and I thought that was a bit of a contradiction to say that you can't do it because you can. Apparently, it's not as easy as when you're running them face into the wind, but yeah. So anyway, yeah.
So, what do you think of me? Do you like me? Do you hate me?
I do like you, actually. I think even though we're on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as belief goes, I find your approach is a lot more respectful than some of my Christian compatriots. I mean, they can go through some of your comments and see where I'm even some of the presuppositionalists. I would love to get some of these guys and do this type of thing, because I think I could, and I'm probably going to. The rest of my life is probably going to be trying to defend myself now when I say this. I think I could tear strips off them, because I don't think that that they have been completely honest in their answers. Because if you answer honestly to something, you have to be aware in yourself that, well, one, you don't contain all knowledge. Two, admitting you don't know something or that you don't have all the answers is not a weakness. It's just a sign of being human.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just trying to think of an example the other day. When you and one other guy, it's on one of your older videos from about a month or two ago, you're talking to some of these presuppositionalist guys, and you're asking about the certainty question. I'm probably going to get burned at the stake and excommunicated from the church and all sorts of stuff, because you can't be 100% certain that there is a God. You can say, I'm confident there is a God, but you can't say I'm absolutely certain there is a God, because it begs the question, well, show him to me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're preaching my gospel. Keep going.
I know. That's the scary part. I mean, and even what was it? There was another one. I'm trying to think who it was, and they were. And I'm sitting there. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm watching this video, and you're asking the questions, and I'm just sitting there giving my answers, and they're giving their answers, and I'm going, "What? You can't say that." You know. I mean, one of them was, and I'm probably going to put myself in the firing line for this too. But when you talk about internal inconsistencies, or even internal consistency, and I think it was to and they were denying the possibility that there could be internal consistencies. But what I said in the comments below was that you have to. Oh no, that's what it was. It was when you asked a question about revelation.
Yeah.
Could a person be wrong? And they're going, and I think it was, is it Darwin?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, and I'm going, yes, you can be wrong, and he's going, oh no, and I'm thinking, what? And that's where I don't know if anyone read any of the examples underneath, but then I put up and I said, well, you get a Calvinist, an Arminian, an open theist, and a Molinist. If people know what all those things are, and I'm not going to go into detail about what all those different things are, you put them all in the same room and ask them the question. And what was the question? The question was, how
can you tell the revelation from one person to another, is actually true?
Well, that's it. And if you talk about, how does the grace of, foreknowledge would be the question you'd ask. You say, how does God's foreknowledge work? You get 4 different answers, but each one would claim to be right. Now, I mean, as someone who is a Calvinist, I would say that probably, I would say that my theological stance is probably the most. This is probably a very arrogant thing to say. I would say that my theological stance is probably the most internally consistent of the 4 views, especially with open theism or Molinism, which have all sorts of horrible inconsistencies and problems with it. And secondly, probably Arminianism would be probably the second most consistent view. But still, you have to be able to look at your own view and say, I can't answer all these questions because 1, I don't know, and 2, I just think that there are limitations to how far I can take a certain view. And and I've been thinking probably the last day or two, especially about begging circular reasoning and begging the question. One thing I see is, and I mean, honestly, don't know how to get around this, is when someone says, how do you know God is real? Well, because the Bible says so. Circular reasoning. You see what I mean? And it begs the question. Well, you say, well, because the Bible says it. Well, how do you know the Bible says so? And it becomes this thing of like, well, because God says so, Bible says so, God says so. And at some point, and this is a thing that, and I don't think it's a weakness to say this, is to say, well, at the end of the day, my belief is based on faith. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to let everyone know here, I kind of promised Chris that this would be his forum. He can ask me 10 questions, and so I'm not going to ask any questions back at Chris.
So I can give you that opportunity another time, and you can do your best to completely humiliate me, and I'll humbly accept that, because I just have to say, just thinking about the caliber of some of the stuff I've seen from yourself and from there's probably a few others around the place. I have some massive gaps in my knowledge. Things that I just don't know, that that I would like to take a year off and research them, but unfortunately, I still have to eat and pay for this damn house over my head and stuff like that, and so I just don't have the time, and it's just a progressive thing of inquiry. You're just going on and on and on and on. So anyway, yeah. So we could switch this around at some stage, and then you can have the opportunity to chew me out.
Well, I try not. I only chew the precepts out. So, and you probably really got funny. My back on that.
Yeah, it's really funny. I've been calling myself a precept, but in a lot of ways, I probably am presuppositional. But even when I listen to presuppositionalists talk, and Darwin, all right, I'm going to get myself into trouble here again. I think he's gone under a different name, and I've seen him on other videos and stuff like that. He's not a very nice guy, I don't think. He has a tendency to... I just watched something earlier, and I think it was him under a different name, and he was tearing strips out of some poor guy and calling him a troll when he didn't even know him. And I don't think he even knew the answer to his own question. The question he asked, if I can put this out there, the question he asked is, who wrote a majority of the New Testament? And there's two answers to that. There's not one answer, there's two. If you go by volume, it is one person. If you go by the amount of books written, it is actually a different person. But by volume, it's actually the Apostle John. If it's by actual number of books, it's the Apostle Paul. So I just put that out there. And if people want to come to my doorstep with a burning cross, they can. But I'm not giving out my address, so you'll just have to find me another way. Ha ha.
Well, Chris, I'm really anxious to hear your 10 questions for me. I'm
all right. Right, these won't be hard questions, and these are probably questions you've heard before, and if you roll your eyes and yawn, I'll understand.
I won't roll my eyes.
Okay. All right. So the first question is what inconsistencies do you see? I've asked you this question before. What inconsistencies do you see in your own worldview? Do you see any internal inconsistencies? Which is the basic question.
Yeah. I have a very simple worldview, and that is, the universe exists and it has the properties that it has. So any consistencies in that worldview would be, I guess, potentially the things I really don't understand, like quantum theory, the entanglement, weird properties of how the quantum theory works with the macro level world. Is a little bizarre to me. Maybe even the whole concept of determinism and free will. But I think, every worldview has that problem. I feel free, but I really don't think I am. But I could be wrong about that. So that would be my answer.
Yeah. When you answered that one or when you said commented on that in a question that I'd asked you before, just in the comments sections. I nearly thought of throwing in Schrodinger's cat, but I'm not going to. Because I see a lot of problems with Schrodinger's cat, and I'm sure you probably do too. Okay, and this is one fired back at all us Christians. What internal inconsistencies do you see in the Christian worldview?
Okay. Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah, very briefly. I'm not going to say all those little things that Christians have solutions for. I think the biggest one is salvation, that God chooses the believer, and yet the believer chooses God. Sovereignty versus free will.
Yep. And that's a conundrum that, yeah. Yep, I can go with that one. Okay.
How am I doing? Am I 2 for 2 so far?
You're 2 for 2, yeah. Why do you think morality is intuitive? If that's the right term.
Yeah, I think it's intuitive based on what we seem to see among the species. I think evolution can explain a lot of morality. I've often put up that picture of 5 different things and ask in what order would you feel the least amount of shame in destroying, the rock, the leaf, and so forth. And I think evolution explains that. We seem to care more about things that have intelligence, self-awareness, can experience pain. I think concepts of well-being, empathy, unnecessary suffering explains all that.
That's interesting because, I thought about that. Dolphins versus an ant. Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything in the Bible that says that it's I'll put it this way, more of a sin to kill a dolphin over a butterfly. But yet I think intuitively humans would have a little more shame or guilt in killing a dolphin over a butterfly.
I think you're right. Yeah. Do you think science... Oh, sorry, no, I've already asked the question. Do you believe evolution is a reasonable explanation for life on Earth?
No. I think evolution doesn't even attempt to answer that question. It starts at life and explains things forwards from life.
Okay. I was surprised by that.
Abiogenesis is I think what you're getting at, and we honestly don't know. We have some theories. When I say we, I mean mankind.
Yep. Okay. Well, that leads to the next question. Do you see any flaws or internal inconsistencies in the evolutionary theory?
No, but that's mostly because I am mostly ignorant that being of evolution, the theory. But that being said, I probably know more than probably 90% of people. What I would say though is that if there are problems with evolution, I think scientists would own up to it, and there are ways to falsify evolution via common descent. It's very falsifiable theory.
Okay. Do you think atheists have a higher moral standard than theists?
Ooh. I'm going to say yes. And here's the reason why. When an atheist does good, they do good for goodness sake. I think some theists, when they do good because someone's watching, i.e. God.
And yeah, and it shouldn't be that way. Is there a form of theism? Oh no, where's that question? That's right. Okay. You've stated you are an agnostic atheist. Isn't that a contradiction in terms, i.e. an oxymoron?
No, the agnostic versus gnostic and atheist versus theist answer 2 different questions. The first question is, what do you believe? Atheism and theism answers that question. And what do you know or claim to know or can you know answers agnostic versus gnostic answers that question. So I don't believe there's a God. That's why I'm an atheist. But I don't say that there can't be one, and I don't know if there's one or not. That's why I'm agnostic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I actually went through and did a whole Google search on that myself because I'm thinking, hang on, whoa. And someone who was much brighter than I am actually gave that same answer, and I can't remember
Well,
the
that
name.
person would be right then. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Probably. Well, it's not something that I'd really thought about, and I hadn't seen anyone, because normally when someone says they're an atheist, they just go, "Oh, I'm an atheist." And you have all these preconceived ideas in your head about what an atheist is. But when someone says, "Oh, I'm an agnostic atheist," I go, "Yeah."
I give a lot of atheists flack when they say, I know there's no God. I know there's no afterlife. I know there's no spiritual realm. How could you possibly know such a thing? Are you omniscient? Like, let me put it this way. When I say I'm an agnostic atheist, what I'm really saying is I'm open to evidence and I'm open to changing my mind. But I don't believe in a God.
So we both reject supreme confidence.
Yeah, I think confidence, supreme certainty or confidence, not always, but can lead to arrogance and violence. And I think having a little bit of doubt leads to humility and compassion.
Yeah, and we've both seen what supreme confidence or supreme certainty looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you think morality developed according to the evolutionary theory, or did it?
Yeah, I think it did. I think that when you have a tribe that is killing each other, that tribe's not going to survive very long.
Is that a reference to the to them going off and killing the next tribe because there wasn't enough mammoths to go around?
Well, it's the problem is trying to expand that in group. We have various tribes and various cultures, and it seems like we all converge on this idea that we protect our own, right?
Yep.
But the goal, I think, and I think that can be explained through evolution. Like, how can a species survive if the moral construct is to just annihilate each other? We'd be extinct by now. And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's like the question you asked me about if I wasn't a Christian, would I still behave in the same way? And part of my reply was, I wouldn't be. I mean, I really have to. It's a really hard question to answer because I've been a Christian for nearly 40 years. I became a Christian when I was 14 years old, so I was only really a kid. But if I wasn't a Christian, I would probably be a very different person from the way I am, from the way I am now or today. I think that the tribe thing or the survival thing, would I still be as moral or as ethical as I am if I wasn't a Christian? And the really brutally honest answer to that is I don't know that I would, but I would still comply with the laws of the world because I have to survive, which is the whole thing about the development of morality according to evolutionary theory is I would probably be able to live in the society not as a psychopath or a sociopath, because I have to live in that society and comply by the laws of that society. But again, it wouldn't be a religious motivation. But I think something you said earlier in relation to am I only good because someone is watching? I would wonder, and like I think we've had this discussion about Pascal's wager. I have a real serious problem with Pascal's wager, and I've actually heard people use that argument about I'm good because blah blah blah, and I just hear Pascal's wager, Pascal's wager, Pascal's wager. and it's sort of like trying to play the two, like the
I think I think even the concept of God can be explained by evolution. I think there in our species we've tended to behave better when we think someone's watching us, and so the concept of God has given that person, that entity that is watching, even when there's no humans around. So we tend to, oh, maybe I shouldn't do X because if I do X, the gods will punish me. And so I think that has evolved, that concept of assigning agency and having sort of like that father figure watching over us to help us behave. And I think some people would be worse people if they gave up their God belief. I've talked to a lot of them, and it scares me.
I yeah
Yeah.
I agree. Like I'll be honest. I've met some really in my time in the church. I've met some pretty unscrupulous people that um, you can't help but question what their motivation for actually being in the church is. I mean,
Yes.
they're probably all through society at different levels, um, but it does seem to me sometimes it's like religion sometimes brings out the worst in people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing because if you if I can use the word altruism, if you are if you're an altruistic person, okay, you'd have to say if you're an altruistic person at your core, it wouldn't matter whether you were Christian or not. But you see, being a Christian, if people and there's this version of the gospel out there that people give, and they say, if you become a Christian, you're not going to go to hell. And they go, oh, good, I'm not going to be punished for all the bad things I've done. Yes, I'll become a Christian. I get a wonder sometimes about whether that's a genuine response to, what it means to be a Christian. I mean, like in my view, and I've said this before. Um, God didn't choose me for any redeeming character or feature I have. So I've got no reason to boast.
Except for being a good sheep herder.
Except for being a good sheep herder, yeah. I like sheep.
See what I did there? Because Jesus is a shepherd, and you help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. That was great. Oh, I really, really like that.
That's what I do.
I'll put in a good word. I'll put in a good word for you with God. Okay. Just in case he's there.
Just in case.
I like sheep rather than cows because cows are too big. I'm only 5'3", and I've been run over by cows. Sheep are a lot smaller and they don't tend to run you over. They butt you in the kneecap, but they don't run you over.
You've been run over by a cow?
I was stomped into the mud by a cow. I was milking one time by hand, and it had been raining. And we go out and get the stalls. Go out and get the cows, and bring them into the stalls very, very early in the morning before light. And this morning it was pouring down rain, and I got this cow. Brought this cow into its stall, or tried to, and another cow had found its way into the stall, and it got to the feed before it, and it got in the wrong stall. And because if one cow goes into the wrong stall, the other cows go, hey, that's my stall, I'm not going into the next one. And then you have to try and get that cow out of that stall and put it in its own stall to put this cow in the stall where it's supposed to be, so it'll be fed. So anyway, this particular cow had the name Stroppy, and Stroppy means angry. And it was an angry cow, and she was big. She was taller than me, and she had big horns. And so I put my arms around her neck and tried to back her out of the stall, and she just flicked her head sideways and threw me in the mud and stomped all over me.
Oh, wow.
And you could hear me screaming from about I don't know, 3 or 4 miles.
And that is that when you found Jesus?
It's probably when I should have found Jesus, because what came out of my mouth at the time wasn't very Christian, and I was actually training at a missionary school at the time, and I was not very spiritual at that place and time, and it was pointed out to me that everybody's children in the dean's residence could hear me. And I said, but I was being stomped on by a cow, and they said that wasn't the point. It was what was coming out of your mouth was the point. So I showed my human side, very, very human side. Yeah. So yes.
What question are we on now?
That was it.
That was it? That wasn't 10 questions.
Yeah, it was. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. Yep, it's 10. That's 10 questions. But we sort of digressed a little and talked about other stuff and got to know each other. I would offer you a soft lolly, but you're there and I'm here.
Okay.
But that was it. I wasn't going to try and do anything to, like specific, like to, try and be a smarty pants and ask ridiculous questions that, I know that nobody can answer, because I'm really too old to ask those questions and I can't remember most of them anyway. So I thought I'd just be straightforward and ask questions that you could that you could probably answer. Yeah.
Well, you're an interesting guy, because in the YouTube comment section, it seems like sometimes you compliment me a lot, and then other times you don't. You do the reverse. So I don't know what to make of you, really. Are you my friend or my foe? It's been hard for me to get a read on you, but it's good to see you face to face, because now I think we can call each other friends.
I think we can call each other friends. I think I'm like, other people. I sometimes react emotionally to things rather than rationally. And you could probably tell the difference in the questions when I'm acting emotionally and when I'm not. I think my initial trepidation in even like revealing that I exist was probably a little bit of suspicion. And even standing back, because like sometimes when you look at a question, you have these immediate presuppositions about, I know what they're trying to do, and then when you watch some other stuff and you start to go, okay, yeah, no, I was wrong. You know what I mean? It's like my first introduction to you was when you posted the 5 question challenge for people to answer, and we could actually do that.
The Christian challenge, the 8 things, you mean?
Yes, yep. And that was when James White had responded to it, and that was my first thing. And then I went and looked, and I thought, because there are times when people will ask questions, and they do have, they're not just open questions, and there's often a real, if you call it a nefarious agenda behind them. That's the 8 questions. Oh my gosh, even with my reading glasses, I find that hard to read. Oh, that's better. I can't see your face now.
That's right.
I can answer those. I believe a snake serpent talked in Genesis. Yes, I believe that. That's what the Bible says. I believe a man lived in the belly of a great fish for 3 days. I didn't know about that James White thought that was metaphoric. I thought it was actual literal. And I'm glad you said great fish and not whale, because it's probably something called a dag.
I try very hard to be biblically accurate.
Yeah, good. I wish some Christians would do that. I believe that Jesus ordered the stoning of rebellious children. I don't know that that's actually a literal interpretation of that text. You've got to look at the context. I'm a Calvinist. You got pretext, context. You've always got to look at context without being pretextual. I believe Jesus said that the Israelites could take virgin women. I can't see the end of the
sorry.
the question. Move it over. For themselves and give 32 virgin women to Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant of that one myself.
Yeah, there's
I'll
a
leave
verse
that.
basically. It's the spoils of war, and it gives a list of all the things that the soldiers could keep, and then
Oh, right.
yeah,
Yeah. Old Testament. Wonderful stuff. You know, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. The Old Testament talks about a lot of stuff, but doesn't make moral judgments about it. It just says, this is what happened. So-and-so raped so-and-so, and so-and-so cut someone's head off. And it really doesn't comment to say whether it's right and wrong, but I think that a person with any common sense could look at it and say, I don't know that it was a real good idea. I don't know that God actually liked the idea that Lot slept with his two daughters, but Lot got drunk and did it anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah. But here's a situation where God says to Moses, or Jesus says to Moses, you can do this, and it in some translations it basically says, and give the women, these virgins, to the Lord meaning God or Jesus. And so a lot of people don't even know this verse exists. A lot of Christians don't know it exists, but that's what it says. And so a lot of Christians thought I was trying to mock them, but I just want to sincerely know, do they believe this or not? And I really don't. I'm not with this challenge. I wasn't interested in their explanation, like James White went on for an hour to do.
That's James White. Yep, he does.
Yeah.
That's what James does. James doesn't like to. He likes to close all the gaps, and I understand why he would. I would understand why he would do that. I would just look at that question and say, if you're talking about dedicating them to the Lord, yeah, but if it's like in terms of them being, possessions, no. Okay, I believe that Jesus sanctioned abortion, killing of unborn, if an unfaithful wife was pregnant. Yeah, see, this is the thing. I don't know that Jesus. Oh well, okay. If you're talking about Jesus as God, an unfaithful. I think James explains that one quite well, and I can't remember the actual context of it.
And this is where I disagreed with James White. Yes, I said it to all the Christians listening. I disagree with James White, and you know what? I think deep down James White knows I'm right about this, or that he just maybe didn't say what he was he left some of it out. The key word in that sentence is if. So I believe that Jesus sanctioned abortion, the killing of the unborn, if an unfaithful wife was pregnant. It doesn't say it doesn't give a situation where a woman is pregnant. I grant you that, but if anyhow, I don't want to go into the details, but if a woman was pregnant and she was unfaithful, God said to the priest, or whatever you call that, the Israelite at that time, the Levite, you drink this magical water, and if you drink it and you've been unfaithful, and if you're pregnant, that baby's going to die. And that's called abortion.
Yep. Okay, question 6. I believe that many dead people came out of the graves when Jesus died. I thought yes. Yep.
Okay.
An unusual circumstance. A lot of skeptics, Copenhagen and all those would go, never happened. But, unusual times, a supernatural thing. I thought it was, yeah. So, yep, I'll just go, yes, that happened. I believe that, question 7, I believe that Jesus ordered that a husband should be the first one to throw a stone at his wife if she leads him away from belief. Deuteronomy. Yeah.
You're not familiar with that one?
Not familiar with that one either. I probably was at some stage, but I spend a lot of my time in the New Testament rather than the Old. It's not because I avoid it. It's probably more that if I was to had really stopped and looked into the background of this, I could probably give a James White type answer because I have a tendency to ramble.
Well, this is why like you said,
Yeah.
you spend more time in the New Testament than Old, but this is exactly why I put the word
Yeah.
Jesus in there instead of Yahweh.
Yep. See, and that's what throws people. That would throw people. I believe that Jesus ordered, the Lord, and yeah, I mean, the Old Testament is in some senses quite barbaric, and I don't apologise for that. I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Old Testament, you're looking at, what God is requiring when He's saying, if you're going to worship Me and you're going to honour Me, you need to be this way. And that could be.
So why do you think
seen as?
I know I promised not to ask you a question, but
Yeah.
why do you think the God of the Old Testament changed so much to the God of the New Testament? Like, do you think it was just the birth of His Son that calmed him down, or?
No. I don't. I think the God of the Old Testament is the God of the New Testament. I think in the Old Testament, because it's a lot of shadows. The Old Testament, is looking forward. It presents this picture. You see a lot more of God's judgment and holiness. On the other side of it, when you look at the narrative itself, a lot of the time, the writer is only writing what is necessary and probably leaving out probably a lot of detail or a lot of background that would give you a broader understanding. Again, we're looking at a nation, in the Middle East that existed, 2, 3, 4,000 years ago, and our Western concept of community and society and law is probably completely different to the way that they were.
See, when I was a Christian and reading the Old Testament, and when I was in my mid-30s, when I was coming out of Christianity, I started reading the Old Testament from the standpoint, okay, let me just read this like a man wrote it or men wrote it and not God.
Yep.
And I tell you, it started making a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's the naturalistic view, but yeah, I see where you're coming from. Okay, number 8. I believe that Jesus stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son. Yes, He did, but didn't stop Jephthah from sacrificing his daughter. Well, Jephthah was a really stupid man to make such a, to do what he did, and saying, I will kill the first thing that comes out the front door of my house, and out steps his daughter. Now, I know James gave a completely different explanation for that and said, that he didn't literally sacrifice it. She just wasn't allowed to marry and stuff like that. But if you take it on its face value, it says that he sacrificed his daughter. And if he sacrificed his daughter, then the guy was a stupid man, And the thing is he didn't have to keep that promise. He did. I wouldn't have, if it had been me, I would have just slapped myself in the face and said, hey, I'm not doing that. Hey,
Okay. I got one for you now, Chris.
All right.
You wouldn't do that.
No, I would have gone back on my word. I wouldn't, because, there was, that was one of the very things that, runs right through the Old Testament. The whole thing about, it was the Babylonians and whoever else it was, that used to sacrifice their children to strange gods and stuff like that.
But if you may, if you allow me, I got a second question for you. Do you have? First of all, I need to know: do you have any kids?
No.
Okay.
I've never married. I'm single, and I'm not advertising.
You're single, but you're not ready to mingle. Okay.
I don't. I knew this was going to come up somehow or another. No, I don't. I've never really. I'm on the autism spectrum disorder thingy. Asperger's, and I can read people, and predict people and do all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to interpersonal,
I love autistic people. Like most of my friends are autistic. Seriously.
Well, that probably explain some of my strange outbursts, and like why I'm a little bit conflicting at times. But I mean, I understand myself fairly well, but I don't. It's like I can sit and watch two people have a conversation, and I can probably predict what they're going to do and say, but apparently, I've had women in my past that have come up and sat down and been really interested in talking to me and stuff like this, and I've sat there and been polite and have walked away, and my mates have jabbed me in the ribs and said, "Oh, she likes you," and I've gone, "Oh yeah, why?" Personal relationships are just something I've never been really very good at all, and I still can't see you. You're way over there. You can't see I can see you now. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So if personal relationships that you've always struggled with,
I've always
what about the personal relationship with Jesus? Like, I have a theory that a lot of autistic people are not believers because they don't desire a personal relationship like a lot of other people do.
I'll probably get excommunicated for saying this as well. My relationship with God has always been a struggle. I don't have a trouble with belief. I probably struggle more with communication, in the sense of staying in touch, if that makes sense. I'm in that sense, I'm probably a little bit insular, if that makes sense. And I probably over intellectualize my spirituality, if that makes sense also. And yeah, I'm aware that it is probably an uncommon thing, but I wasn't necessarily, when I became a Christian at the age of 14, I was a typical 14-year-old boy in my own way, although I was never really like most teenage boys, I guess. I really, I wasn't really at a point of crisis or anything in my life when I became a Christian. It was just, like, I'm not going to go into the background of it, but there was a lot of things that happened through my life that when the gospel was presented to me, it just made sense. And that's what I needed. That's what I needed to do. And I'd nearly always believed, I think up until probably, I just got into high school, and I wasn't a believer when I went into high school, and I was probably emulating my father, who claimed to be an atheist at the time, and I was just saying there was no God, but I couldn't give you a reason why there was no God or why there was a God. But in my own conscience and stuff like that, there was still a lot of stuff in my head that when the gospel was presented to me, it just made sense. And so yeah, I wasn't really deeply thinking about it at the time. It's just something that I did, and I didn't really know many other people who were believers. I was never one to stick with one group of people. I floated from from group to group, because I think people might have thought they needed me more than I needed them, and that's not I'm not being narcissistic in saying that. I mean, I had people that would seek me out for friendship, but I didn't necessarily. I was quite happy just to wander around the countryside with my dog most of the time, and that's what I did as a kid, as a teenager. I just wandered off on my own and talked to my dog and looked at the trees and the rabbits. And
hey, Chris, you made a comment that part of the reason why you're a believer is because it made sense to you. Are you saying that if it stopped making sense to you, you would give it up?
That I don't know. It's just an honest answer. I don't know. I've had moments of, and I guess this is the other thing. When I hear some of these other people talking, and they're just talking with this absolute confidence. Yes, there is a God. The next question should be: have you ever had any doubts? And see how honest they are. Oh yes, I've had doubts. I've had moments. Like even when I was especially when I was at missionary school, there was a particular one of our tutors who I didn't get along with, and I had some real moments of doubt, not because of disbelieving in the faith, but it was probably more of an eye opener about how about some people behave. But I I would say that I had uh, because he had such an incredibly ridiculous, unrealistic standard of what a Christian was supposed to be, and I obviously didn't measure up to that. That made me doubt my faith.
Are you
Not so much.
like for me, I was a deist for a long time because first cause was kind of a powerful thing. Like where the universe come from, that sort of idea. And also the concept of hell was powerful. Like that's
Yeah, yeah.
when you're raised believing that hell is real and a terrible place, it's hard to shake that.
Yeah,
Are those two big reasons why maybe even if the belief wouldn't make sense to you, you would still remain in it because the explanation of first cause and the fear of hell?
I think fear of hell. To be honest, there is that fear of hell. I'll just say this: when I was really, really, really young, and I'm talking, my visual memory of stuff is I have visual memories that go right back to when I was probably 2 and 3 year old, and I had this series of dreams, and I have no idea where these dreams come from, but I probably would have been, I can remember probably 3 years old, something like that. And I had these dreams where I'd be falling and it would be black, and there'd be all these burning or orange, embery stuff to either side, and a strong smell of sulfur. Now, my family aren't Christian. We never went to church. So I don't come from a Christian background. But that has always, if I'm trying to think, is it Dante's comedy? Is it Dante's comedy? The painting with the levels of hell. Now, I have no conception of that at the time when I'm 2 or 3 year old. But anyway, I can always just remember I would be dreaming, and all of a sudden I'm falling, and it'd be pitch black, and there'd just be these like odd rock formations that were bright orangey, like embers, red. That bright embers, like that sort of stuff. And that's I don't know where that comes from, because I relate dreams to stuff that I've either experienced or thought about or talked about. A lot of my dreams, even now, I'll wake up and I've had a dream and I'll analyze it and I go, well, that was about this and about the other. Even though dreams generally don't make a whole lot of sense, they're just a combination of stuff or experiences or things you've thought about. And then there's that other stuff I don't know where that came from.
So let's say,
yep.
Like, even though you had these dreams about sulfur and fire and stuff, let's say you and I both knew, and this is a hypothetical, that we both knew with 100% certainty that there is no hell, that there is no negative afterlife. Whether there's a heaven or not, we're still unsure about. But let's say we knew for certain there was no hell.
Yep.
Would your view of the Bible change at all, you think?
I think it would.
Yeah.
Because then it would be a case of, well, if I knew with 100% certainty that there was no hell, I'd wonder why Revelations talks about the lake of fire.
But would you even have a need? Would you even have a need for Christianity anymore?
No, not then. No, obviously not. Because like if you could prove that those things weren't true, the honest person would have to say, like someone, I don't know what you would call someone who would say, oh, yeah, I'd still believe. Well, what would be the point?
Yeah. See, my theory is that the belief in hell supersedes the belief in Jesus, because without hell, you don't need Jesus.
Mm. Oh, that's fair. I can see where you're going. And I think for a lot of people that is probably something that does. But on the other side of it is, it wasn't a fear. When I become a Christian, it wasn't a fear of hell that really drew me to Christianity. It was that the thing that stuck in my head most of all is that, and probably as a child and a younger person, there was always this knowing that that I had done, and we've all done things wrong in our life. We've all lied and stole, and I was a typical kid who did stuff behind people's back when I knew they weren't looking, and stuff like that. And for me, it was a thing of like not having any resolution for that, I guess. And I think, and this is, I will say this: when I was about 12, I was staying with my elder sister was in hospital, so I was staying with another family. Because we lived up in a little mining town, and the next major hospital was here in Adelaide, and my sister had to have craniofacial surgery to adjust her jaw and fix the cleft palate, stuff like that. Anyway, there's a bunch of us, and we're about 11, 10, and 12-year-old, and we got talking about, sort of like we were such theologians. We started talking about what God could do, and God could do anything and stuff like this. I don't know where this stuff came from. Anyway, it came up one day, and we're standing there in this hallway and we're talking about it. And one of the other guys turned around and said, "Well, if God can do anything, He could appear to us right now, standing among us." And I just about freaked out, and I have no idea why. I just had if you could call it the fear of God struck into me. I just went, I'm not ready, and I don't know why. I don't know why I wasn't ready. But when the gospel was explained to me when I was about 14, it all fell into place. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, but by the grace of God,
But
so
when you were 14, did you ever ask the question if the gospel was true?
No, not at the time. No. I wasn't even interested in, some of the discussion I saw the other day from one of your previous videos. They're talking about prophecy and revelation and stuff. None of that stuff actually even occurred to me until I was probably about 16. Then I started to ask some really difficult questions. I started to ask questions about why Mormonism was different to being an Orthodox Christian, or why were Jehovah's Witnesses different, or why, what was the difference? Why was my view more correct than their view? Why was my view true rather than their view? And I was given this glib answer out of, Deuteronomy 18, 21, 22, if a prophet presumes to speak in the name of the Lord and it doesn't come to pass, blah, blah, blah. You don't tell a kid with Asperger's that. That's the dumbest thing you could say, because that's not an answer. So I went off and tracked some Mormons down and started asking them questions, and ended up they put out a little flyer in their own church to say, don't talk to this guy because he's full of demons. They were talking about me. I give them stick for about 4 years.
You were a 5'3" demon?
I was a 5'3", long-haired demon. Yeah, I had hair. I had hair then.
Oh my.
And yeah, I wasn't real popular, and it was really funny because it was a friend of mine who actually said to me, "Oh, the president of the church had said had read out this letter that I'd written to him. Didn't say who I was, but read out this letter, and said." Um, and then made a statement after and said, "This man is of the devil. Stay away from him." But he didn't say who I was, and he knew if he'd said who I was, that it would have got back to me, and I could have probably legally done something to him. And anyway, this friend of mine is telling me about this, and she was a member of the Mormon Church. And I'm standing there smiling, going, "Oh, really? Okay, yeah."
Well, I can empathize with you.
That was me.
I can empathize with you. I've had some people tell me that I'm an agent of Satan and that there's demons working in me to raise doubt into believers, and I've heard that sort of thing too.
Doubt isn't necessarily a bad thing. Doubt can be a healthy thing because it keeps you thinking about your worldview. If you don't, I am more scared of people who have no doubts than people who do have some doubt or a healthy doubt, because it's like saying, well, if you have no doubts that stick of dynamite in your hand when you light it won't blow your face off and won't kill the rest of us in this room, then I'll just leave you to your own devices and I'll say goodbye now. Those type of people, I wonder whether people who have absolute confidence actually suffer from a lack of faith, rather than people who have some doubts. The trouble with the world is that the stupid I love it. The stupid are cocksure and the intelligent people are full of doubt.
Can I get an amen?
Oh, amen. 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 Oh, I love it. I saw the red line. I thought, what's he doing? Is he taking a picture of me or something? And then this thing popped. No. And that's, yeah. People who have absolutely no doubt, I think they suffer from, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. It's an overconfidence, but it compensates for a lack of faith. And again, I'm probably not going to be real popular with a lot of people, and I'll have to start using my other YouTube channel, which, by the way, I may do at some stage. I do because I have another YouTube channel that I thought about as a concept to start up as a way of debunking. And no one's safe, not even my own ilk. No one is going to be safe. Whatever is out there, I'm going to go after, and I'm going to debunk and probably make myself terribly unpopular.
But speaking about doubt and like I got a secret to tell you. Like, here, lean in a little bit.
Okay.
Lean in.
Don't you dare kiss me.
No. See, the apologists out there, who seem so confident about what they're saying, I think they doubt the most.
Ah, you mean like some of those that I was talking about? Because when you talk with absolute certainty, you have to wonder, and I'm talking about Daft Darwin and especially, I took real exception. I just took real exception to the way he came across, because it was just really arrogant. It really was arrogant, and I just thought, and I hope at some stage, and the problem, this is probably the irony of him saying he's a presupposition. Most presuppositionalists are Calvinist, and go after Ravi Zacharias.
I met a Odin, a believer in the god Odin precept yesterday.
I saw that. I watched that.
Yeah, and I also have met a couple Muslims who are precepts.
Okay, was that Ocean That
Yes.
was the presuppositionalist?
Yeah, ocean.
Yeah.
Although he admitted that it's not quite the same because his God's a little more nebulous than others. Like
Yeah.
that God doesn't claim to be omniscient and omnipotent and all
No,
these things.
no. I found him refreshingly honest. You know, like he was able to say, I don't know, and he was able to say, and admit the limitations of his belief system. And if he didn't know, he didn't know, and left it at that. There wasn't a whole lot of bravado in there.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think his beliefs. Well, let me say this: there was a time though where he did admit that his belief wasn't falsifiable, and
Yes, that was the thing. Yeah.
and he didn't know if there was anything that could change his mind, because when we pressed him on it, I still maintain that a deeply held belief that's unfalsifiable is not a belief worth having.
I can understand that. I can understand why you would say that. And, you know, admittedly, you know, even, you know, the God of Christianity is unfalsifiable because you can't put him under a microscope and study him. It's as simple as that. You know, it is, and that's a faith statement to say, you know, I'm confident that God exists, but I can't say 100% for sure that God exists, and that's not a Pascal's wager type thing.
So what would lower your confidence, do you think?
Not what the Bible says. I think if I've had any points of crisis in my belief, it's been people. I guess it's something that I tried to say, and this was in relation to Darwin. In his one of his discussions, because I think there's probably been one or I think there's been more than one time that you've had conversations with him, and it's one thing to say, and it was on the whole thing of Revelation where, and I think that they misunderstand the question when you've said like, well, God gives revelation. Can you get that wrong? Well, it's not that God gives a bad revelation. It's that we don't understand it because we're human. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was trying to get to the outsider test for faith on that one because
and I admitted that I would be willing to take that test if I had to.
Yeah, because I
can't see why someone wouldn't want to use the outsider. You know, if you say, well, the Mormons say, or the Muslims say, or the outsider test. You know, like why is your revelation true and theirs isn't?
See, when you're coming from the perspective that the Bible's true.
Yep.
If that's your going in, you're saying, oh, the Bible is reliable. Even
yes,
you don't even have to say it's 100% true, but say it's very, very reliable. That kind of skews everything from that point forwards.
That does.
And that's, you can see it clear. If you're a Christian, you can see it clearly in Islam. If you're a Muslim, you just look at the Quran and you start at the starting point. Oh, this is true. This is God's word, Allah's word. And so, but if you're in my opinion, if you're a real seeker of truth, you don't start there. You don't start saying, oh, Jesus said, I am the truth, I am the way, I am the life. Your starting point should be, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Maybe that statement is no more important than if you or I were to say it.
Yeah.
And,
that's where, that's where when I got to about 16, I started to ask those questions. Now, if I'm looking at it's not just that I'm looking at internal consistency of my belief system compared to other people's belief systems. It's also a case of I can look at the history of Islam. I can look at the history of, and I didn't know jack about Islam up until probably about 5-6 years ago. I'd never really been interested in Islam up until then. Before that, it was always like, either the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, sometimes the Hindus or the Buddhists or others like that. Transcendental stuff, all that sort of stuff. So my primary interest was always, and I had stacks of books about the history of Mormonism from, what's his name, from the Tanners, and from a group that was here in Australia many years ago that had a cult ministry outreach, that had done a lot of different research. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. I'd picked up a few books on rather off the cuff small cults. Jim Jones, the Jonestown thing that happened in Ghana was a big one back in the late 70s. When that happened, that was a real shocker. Even though that was sort of an event that was over afterwards, but it was so tragic. And it did make you ask questions, or make me ask questions about, why did I believe my religion was true rather than other people's religions, and I do. My own view is that my view is, and I hope this doesn't come across as arrogant, but I believe my view is more consistent, is more internally consistent than those, but also based on, when you can know something about the character of the people who, like Joseph Smith with Mormonism, and we have a fairly accurate description of his background and probably his motivation and other things. The fact that the guy was a storyteller, a treasure seeker, and a liar, and a womanizer.
Well, how would you relate that to, let's say, Christianity? Like, would you say that it is reasonable to say that some things in the Bible may be true and some things false?
I accept all things in the Bible as true. I can't give you a specific example. I mean, there are some really difficult questions when you ask about Christianity, or when you ask about the Bible, and you.
Like, when I was a Christian, I would have answered the same as you. And yes. For all the Calvinists out there, I was a true Christian. But I would have said, no, it's not reasonable to say that some things in the Bible are true, some things are false. Everything is in the Bible is true.
Oh, okay.
And
if you wanted to... Sorry, go on.
And so I would say, and here's why. You look at all the eyewitness accounts, all the manuscript evidence we have, all the attestations we have, the prophecies we have, the 40 authors over 2,000 years within 66 books of the canon having a consistent theme. It's just obvious it's true. And then in my mid-30s, I started plinking these down one at a time and saying, what? There's reason to doubt. Well, manuscripts, the number of manuscripts doesn't make something true. Eyewitness accounts, well, if you're going to assume the eyewitness accounts are true, then you don't really even need any evidence. You just say, it is what it is. Prophecies, very easy to debunk all the prophecies. And I will say all the prophecies. And so it just goes on and on like that.
Yeah, I guess if you're talking about consistency, if you're talking manuscripts, you've got to compare, the Textus Receptus King James. Oh gosh, here we go. I'm going to get in trouble again now. The King, the King James onlyist with the Textus Receptus Stephanus, and as opposed to the Nessels Aylands text. Well, there is a lack of consistency between those two sets of texts.
The very first King James had the Apocrypha in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell that to the King James only people, and they'll freak out.
And also the first King James Bible also had the things down the side. What do you call them? The
side notes.
Side notes, yeah, and they don't now. Why? And they also took out the preface. you don't see a King James with the preface to the King James Bible anymore because it disagrees with King James onlyism. And I'm not sure if that's why they took it out, but anyway, I'll probably get a phone call from Tex Mars, or the ghost of Peter Ruckman will come and haunt me. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't speak of the dead like that.
Well, Chris, we got to find.
You're bringing out the bad side of me.
Chris, I'm going to make it my passion, my goal in life to find you a 5'2" autistic young woman. How's that?
I don't know, because we'd probably sit there and not hold hands all night. And then if she does look at me, I'm going to say, "Why are you looking at me?" And then if I kiss her, she's going to say, "Why are you kissing me for? Don't you know that's unhygienic? Get your tongue out of my ear. Don't do that." I'm really not very good with touch.
Is there? I don't know. Is there dating websites for autistic people or Asperger's?
There probably is, but they're empty.
Hey, I found a Calvinist dating site, and the amazing thing is you don't even have to sign up; they call you.
And the first question is, are you infralapsarian or are you supralapsarian? If you know what those things are. Anyway, yeah.
But anyhow, I got to run here, but it was right. Really my pleasure to talk with you. It was fun.
No, it has been fun, and I've enjoyed it, and it's been good for me because I was able to get a couple of things off my chest about. I'm having an obsession with Daft Darwin.
Oh, I thought you were going to say with me, but okay.
No, you're fine. Daft Darwin's not. He's in trouble.
Yeah, don't worry about him. Just.
Oh, no. He's an Arminian presuppositionalist. It's a contradiction in terms. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, but.
And I'm going to go out and prove.
I don't want you to start dreaming about that guy. You should be dreaming about, what we talked about. 5'2".
5'2" autistic girls.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as she's shorter than me. I'm not intimidated by smaller women. Taller women, I should say. I'm not intimidated by taller women.
So you would have no problem marrying a 5'10" supermodel?
She's a very short supermodel. Most of them have to be 6 foot tall or something, don't they?
Well, not 5'10". We're 6 feet with heels.
Oh, 5'10". Well, I guess she's a little bit closer.
If you marry a 5'10" supermodel, promise me now that I can be the best man at your wedding.
All right, you can bring the stool so I can stand on.
Yeah, when the priest asks for something from the best man instead of the ring, I'll give you a stool.
Yeah, give me a stool to stand on. Because it'll be. I know this is going to sound terrible, but it's look. I've been staring at a breast for the last half hour. I'd like to see a face.
Well, it might make sense because you don't like to look at people's eyes. So there you go.
It's really funny. Because I have a hearing impairment. I've had to learn to look into people's eyes when I talk. And I also, oddly enough, I also trained in counselling when I was at college. And that was another thing. One of the first things that they picked up is that I'd be talking and looking at the ground, and they say, "You have to look at the person, Chris. You have to, yeah." So those. So
you've trained yourself to overcome that part of Asperger's. Then.
I've trained myself to overcome it. I do feel I do get very intimidated. I don't know why, but I do get intimidated if I have to gaze into someone's eyes or too long, and I don't always get subtle inferences, and sometimes I have to ask really dumb questions like, I don't do counselling anymore. I do something completely different. And I've had to ask questions. You're a sheep herder now, right? No, not now. No. I actually work in disability care now. I work with people with acquired disabilities, and I enjoy that. I'm starting to get a little bit old for that particular thing physically, Um, but yeah, um, but yeah, I've had to I've had some hurdles to overcome with stuff, and I think the hearing thing was one of the main ones in that, because I have to look at people to see their. I mean, I can hear what people are saying, but I don't hear clearly. These are good. These are good because they bring everything in real close,
Right.
and but I'd look silly walking around with a headset on all day with a big microphone on my chest, so that I know they have hearing aids these days, but I did have a hearing aid, but it just annoyed the hell out of me having it in my ear all the time, so I don't wear it anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I'll let you
You
go,
too.
and maybe we'll do
All
this
right.
again sometime.
I hope so. Maybe we can maybe we can combine on something and
You're my second favorite Aussie that I know now.
oh, thank you. Who's your first? I hope
Nicole,
it's not the Prime Minister,
no,
because nobody liked.
Nicole Kidman.
Oh,
No,
she's beautiful.
yeah, and she's not single because she is, I think, 5'10", and I think she talks loudly, so that would overcome the hearing loss. And do you find her
Yeah,
attractive?
I always have found her attractive. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She wasn't when the first movie she ever did was called um, what was it called? Bicycle Bandits. When she was a teenager here in Australia, and you wouldn't recognise her uh, uh, in that movie as a teenage girl as you would recognise her now. She really bloomed, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she's not a Scientologist anymore, and she got away from that creep, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, he's a.
Oops. Oh, okay. Now I'm going to have the Scientologist after me as well.
We love Scientologists. Anyone who's listening in, we love Scientologists, and we
Yeah.
never would ever say anything bad about them.
And
Please don't ruin my
I,
career.
and I love Lee Remini. I think that's how you pronounce the last name.
Oh yeah,
For,
very very courageous of her to come out the way she did.
oh yeah, yeah. And she and she still says coffee. Sorry. I just remember the episode of King of Queens where she learned to say coffee instead of coffee. And then she's with when she's that series that she's doing, she's sitting in the front of the car and she says, "I really need some coffee," and I went, she really says it that way. Anyway, I love accents.
Can you do the American accent?
I can do one of those. I can make myself sound like I come right out of the South and I'm married to my mother. Oh, was that my sister? I'm not sure. But anyway, the dog was the best man, and the cat and the owl. Anyway, yeah.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, but I don't have an accent. You do.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I used to have a Canadian accent, and I got rid of it. And now I don't know. I guess I have a Midwestern United States accent now.
Okay, so what? You're originally from Canada?
Yeah, I couldn't.
Okay.
I couldn't skate. I couldn't play hockey, so they kicked me out of the country, and I moved to the United States. It was political asylum.
Or was it that you met an American woman and got married?
No. My wife. I met my wife in Canada.
All right, so you both got kicked out of Canada.
Yeah.
That's unusual because I thought Canadians were like Australians. They just like people, very friendly. Or am I mistaken?
No. They do. Oh, you mean with the kicking me out part?
Yeah.
No, that was a joke. That everyone.
I know that.
But I honestly, just didn't get this whole skating thing and hockey thing. So moving to the southern states, I'm in the Southwest. I love the heat rather than the cold.
Yeah. It took me 10 years to give up roller skating because I couldn't.
Because you couldn't roller skate?
I can't roller skate. I can stand up on skates, but I look like a drunk robot with a broken leg. I could just never get the hang of roller skating. And someone said, "No, it's so easy. You do this and you do that." I said, "Well, it's easy for you to say. You try being me." No.
Well, the great thing about roller skates is, though, that it makes you, 4 inches taller?
Well, that was true. Yeah. Yeah. I felt like a bigger person. But I actually tried ice skating once. most terrifying experience of my life. I couldn't even stand up. I was so scared of breaking my ankles that I literally crawled off the ice rink. And that was horrible because the ice, I didn't realize those places were so cold.
Yeah, ice is cold.
Oh, look, when you live where I live, and it gets to the summer, and it was in the summer I'd taken one of my friend's daughters and one of her school friends ice skating, and it was like outside. It was like what's the comparison? I think it's about 110, 114
I
degrees
understand
or something.
Celsius. I understand
Yeah.
Celsius.
Okay, so it was about 45 degrees Celsius outside, and we go into this ice rink, and it was just freezing. And I'm drinking coffee and eating hot chips to try and keep myself warm, and then they try and drag me out on the ice, and I'm falling over, and I had to crawl off the ice rink because I couldn't stand up. I was miserable. It was just the most horrible experience of my life. It was freezing, and then when we go back outside, and it's like it's like 45 degrees outside, and I'm melting again. It's like, do I really want to be out here, or do I want to go back in there? It's just no in between. But if I could have got up and skated, I probably would have warmed up a little bit. But that wasn't going to happen. It's just, I couldn't even skateboard. I stand on a skateboard and fall over and hit my head, which probably explains a lot. But anyway.
Okay, I really got to go.
All right.
So
great talking to you, Doug.
Just hit the X and you're out. And yeah, great talking to you. Take care. Have a great day.
Where's the X? Which side is the X? Oh, the X there. Yes, got it right in the middle.
Yeah.
Why did you point up? It's down here. All right. Have a good day, and I will hopefully contact you again sometime, and maybe we could even do something together, and I can play devil's advocate.
Sure. I don't mind devils.
All right. Good. I'll even wear horns.
Okay. There you go.
All right. Catch you later.
See ya.
Yep. Bye. Yep. Bye.
Okay. I think he's gone. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Chris, you're a very talkative young man, but you were very interesting. Thanks for everyone for hanging out in the chat, and we'll see you next time. I will be on tomorrow night with Mike Winger, who's a Christian gentleman who has a YouTube channel, Mike Winger. You can look him up. So we'll see you tomorrow night. I'm not sure exactly what time, but probably 6 or 7 Pacific is my guess. See you tomorrow.